But it's a fascinating story, and the correlations between this and some other things that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Specifically a 10-foot creature. And we all said, oh my goodness, 10 foot. Is it possible? Could something be that big? Well, next one, Charlie. These are just a few examples of giant skeletons. Now, you can hear this talked about all over the internet, radio shows and so forth. There's so many that I wouldn't even know where to start these stories, but I think the main point about this is, these are real. I know that for a fact. Can I show you one? No, I can't, but I know they're real. And I'll tell you this, every time one of these stories pops up, and among other things, I don't know if you guys know it, but if you're interested in Bigfoot, you're probably very interested in all kinds of strangeness that goes on. And you'll see a report pop up in a paper about a strange creature that is washed ashore or something like that, and then poof, gone. Where did it go? Where do these giant skeletons go when they're found? There is report after report of this. But I'll tell you a little story. I used to work with someone who was a computer specialist. And his job was to do the security and work with the computer systems at the Smithsonian. And one day he took me to the side and we were sitting there talking. And he knew what I was into. He knew what I did. He said, I'm going to tell you something. And he said, I'm just going to let you know this. And we're not going to talk about it ever again. He said, if the public ever saw what the Smithsonian has down deep under it, he said society would be rocked off its pedestal. And it was interesting, this past weekend, I guess it was, we've been traveling a lot, I think it was this past weekend. John Tenney, who if y'all haven't heard, I hope you get a chance to listen to him sometime. He's a fantastic speaker. John happened to know somebody at the Vatican. And as I was sitting there listening to John, John told this story and said his friend at the Vatican told him that if the public ever knew what the Vatican had underneath it, deep down in the archives, that it would rock religion to the core. And I thought, seems like I've heard that in just a little bit of slight different terminology about the Smithsonian. So, for some reason that maybe would be hard to kind of figure out, I guess, a lot of these things disappeared. And they're real, they happen, people see them, and they actually have hands on in many cases. And then they're gone. Poof, they're just gone. So maybe someday the Smithsonian or the Vatican will let us all see what they've got down there. Okay, Charlie. My main research has been in Anderson County, Kentucky. I'm the author of the book, The Wild Men of Kentucky, The Mystery of Panther Rock. And this is an area of land that is referred to as the Fraser land. And the reason this is called the Fraser land, there was an elderly lady and she was sitting under a shade tree in the July heat of Kentucky. And we were just chatting. And she looked at me and she said, Philip, and she took her hand and she waved it to the east all across the horizon. And she said, this all used to be the Fraser land. And she said one night, in the middle of the night, that family packed up and they left. They left 6,000 land-granted acres and moved away. And I thought, wow, well, I wonder why. Well, it wasn't too long after that, a friend of mine that lived in the Fraser land sent me a picture of a predator track that was almost 5 inches long. And I don't know how many trackers we got here or people, but I'm going to tell you, a 5-inch track, a predator track like this, that's enormous. 2 weeks after this track was found, just up the road about a half a mile was a man and his wife had a farm there. They'd had it for 50 years. Early one morning, a cow came crashing through the gate. They rushed out to see what was going on, and It was a terrible sight. Due to little ears, I'm not going to get real specific. It was a terrible, terrible sight what had been done to this cow. But in the Fraser land, Bigfoot, there's been many reports, many sightings. Anderson County, Kentucky has the most reports of any county in Kentucky. I have more reports there. Charlie has more reports there that we just haven't released yet. And we've got some ideas about why. It's pretty speculative. It's not even reached its way to a theory. It's more of a concept. But it's interesting just how many sightings by very credible witnesses have come out of Anderson County. And we're doing a lot of research there. We just scouted 850 acres a couple of weeks ago. So Bigfoot abounds in Anderson County, that is for sure. Go ahead, Charlie. Oh, and also, now I'm going to play something for you. When I was there, I filmed a movie there, and I'd been investigating this land for a while. The man that had the land where the most strangeness was occurring was a retired professional. His wife was a professional. They had 3 children, and all they wanted to do was live in their house back in the woods and just have a life. And all that changed. The things that happened back there, so many different things that the children weren't allowed outside anymore at night. No camping, no friends over. It was a very, very big change for these people that didn't go well with them. But when I left to go back to Virginia, where I live, I gave the ex-farmer a little recorder with an external omnidirectional mic. And I said, lay that on that shelf by your cabin, and if you ever hear anything, turn that on, stick it out there, and just record it. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out before Charlie turns this on. What you're about to hear was 350 yards away and about 100 feet down behind a hill. But the main thing to listen to, besides what the howl you're going to hear, are the dogs. Whenever we came to film there, one of these dogs had to be put up. We couldn't get around it. And they are very protective and territorial about this property, which is remote and rough. But when you hear this, these dogs are right beside him. And he said all they did, they kept turning their head, and their ears would flick, and they turned their head. And it isn't till the very end of this, what we're going to hear, which is known as the Fraser howl, that the dogs started making a sound. And they never took off after anything, but anything else that stepped on that property, they're on it just as quick as could be. So Charlie, go ahead and play the Fraser. What's that? Yeah, the dogs do make a little or so at the end, where normally they would be just making all kinds of noise. But they just were frozen almost when this started. Go ahead and play it, Charlie. Yeah, Charlie's going to play it again. Mm-hmm. that after that howl, it wasn't too long after that that a track, an rather odd track, was found that was 20 inches long. This family has never been the same. The reports in this area around their farm and the other land there have been just so numerous. One piece of land directly connected to that, a hunter that had hunted there for 15 years told the landowner to stay off of that property. He said, "I'm begging you, don't go back there again. There is something huge back there." And this hunter, just so happened I knew him, he never has gone back since. So we've got a lot of investigating to still do there. Like I say, Anderson County is a true hot spot. You know, one thing everybody can do is get out there and do it. You know, get up, go out, put a little time into it, take your friends with it. And one thing that's really good, I want to say this about the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization. They put a lot of time into working with kids and educating. And I think that's something they truly need to be commended for. They work hard to spread the word. They come to these events. And I want to thank everybody that put this on today. It's been wonderful and beautiful. It's been very nice seeing everybody here. It's nice to meet you. And I'm going to turn this over to the one and only Charlie Raymond.
Joy's going to go first. Right, you're going to go first.
Joy, you going to go?
Joy and I, we kind of do most of the speaking for our group. Dana's a little shy, wherever she's at. She's probably in the tent in this area.
Yeah, you're getting warm.
Ben's a little shy, but Joy and I, we do most of the talking, and so Joy's going to do the first part of it and start us off, and then I'll jump in and we'll kind of take turns going back and forth. Yeah. All right, Joy, it's all yours.
All right, so as y'all know, we're with Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization. Thank you all for coming. We hope we're going to have a lot of good activity tonight. Has everyone heard about what we saw earlier today, or what we think we saw and what we did definitely hear? Has everyone heard the story? We'll tell you that in a little while. Get everybody excited. So our mission is to document all credible Bigfoot sightings in Kentucky. We also take sightings from other states. So for instance, Ben and I live in Tennessee, but we're part of Kentucky Bigfoot. Anybody that wants to report a sighting to us, we will listen and log it in our database. However, we're also very respectful of the witnesses' wishes. So if they don't want their name specified, sometimes they ask that we not publish it on our website. We will respect those wishes and not do so. So if you go and look at our website at KentuckyBigfoot.com, you'll see, several hundred sightings. We have several hundred more that aren't even on the website. And that's because of these witnesses asking us that. So we try to give credit to each source. We contact the witnesses, we interview them. We'll interview them on film if they allow us to. So if you go to our website, you'll see a lot of personal interviews to tell their story. A lot of people ask, how do we know if someone's telling the truth or making something up? And, there's lots of ways to be able to tell. Charlie's a psychology major, so he really knows how to read people. But you can tell a lot of times when someone's lying, the way they look at you, if they retell the story multiple times, which we will often have them do, if they change facts. So there's a lot of ways that you can tell that, and if they don't embellish something to where it sounds a little too fantastical.
And I'll just add to that real quick. We have some people that here are in law enforcement and so forth. As you know, when you interrogate a witness, you ask open-ended questions. You don't lead the witness with direct questions. You just basically say, what does it look like? Let them supply you with all the details. You don't want to guide them in any direction. The other thing we do sometimes, if there's two witnesses, we'll separate the witnesses. We'll have an identical set of questions, and we'll ask them the questions at the same time, and then we'll look at the interviews, which usually we record on video, and see if their answers match up. They're not on trial. We don't pay them money. So they would have to take a lot of time to collaborate their answers, if you think about it, to fool us. And I don't think they do that. I think they really had a legitimate sighting if their answers match up. So that's another way we can determine.
Yeah. All right, we've got several team members here. As Charlie said, we have Dana and Ben. Charlie, myself, and the Philip is associated with this as well, although you're in Virginia. So we thank you very much for joining us. And Charlie, you want to talk about the origins? That you're the originator?
Well, I started it in basically 2005, but the one thing we've noticed, there's been a lot more sightings. And there's a couple reasons. Who thinks, what's one reason why you think there's more sightings?
Finding Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly. Finding Bigfoot. It's on TV a lot now. What's another reason why you think there's more witnesses coming forward?
Social media.
Social media, Facebook, blogs. They're more apt to post their sighting there, get some positive feedback. You know, behind a computer, it's easier to do that than in person. And then once they feel comfort doing that, then they might come forward and actually meet us and talk to us.
It's amazing because there's a lot of sightings coming in from the 70s and 80s, and they're just not feeling comfortable bringing us forward. They were just too terrified to do it earlier for fear of ridicule. So it's really amazing, this phenomena that's happening.
What's somebody that's famous that you know that has had sightings that has come forward and admitted that there's Bigfoot? Anybody know somebody famous?
Les Strauss.
Yep.
Les Strauss from Survivor Man. He's had multiple encounters.
Orion, did you know somebody too?
Turtle Man.
Turtle Man.
Turtle Man,
Good one. Yeah.
Turtle Man, I'll tell you this, that guy is what you see. We met him in person. We've been to his house. He gave us hair samples from, when was it, 1997?
No, 1977, I think.
Yeah, it was way
When he was
back.
a child, yeah.
He had a Bigfoot encounter. He got these hairs from these broken branches, a big clump of them. We sent the hairs to Dr. Melba Ketchum for this DNA study. She tried 3 times to sequence them. She was unable to get the DNA, but she did tell us it is unidentified primate, which was pretty cool. So Turtle Man has a great sighting. Anybody else? Somebody famous? What about scientists? Anybody know Dr. Jane Goodall?
Heard of that?
World-renowned primatologist? She's gone publicly and said there is an unidentified big primate in North America. She stakes her reputation on that now. Dr. Jeffrey Meldum from Idaho State University, he's studying bipedalism. The university's funding his research. He believes there's a Bigfoot out there. So what's happening is because these scientists are staking their reputations on it and the public sees this, they're coming forward. And there's one more reason why I think there's more sightings.
Anybody guess?
Anybody guess why you think there's more?
More people
Orion.
out there looking.
More people looking.
Technology's increased?
Yeah, the internet's helped it, of course.
Habitats is decreasing.
Yep.
Exactly.
Habitats are decreasing.
We're quickly encroaching on their habitat. You can see logging everywhere, neighborhoods going up, shopping centers going up. Well, what's going to happen? They're going to be pushed back further and further, and they're going to come in contact with humans more. So there's been more and more sightings. So we can do the next slide.
Let's see if I can.
Oh, that one.
Already
is
introduced
good.
this team.
Okay. You
So
can do that
who
one.
can tell us the only states with no reported sightings?
It's already been on the screen, so
Huh.
they know.
It was?
No?
Yeah, his slide had it on there.
Well, let's see, all right?
Hawaii.
Yep, Hawaii. So I think Rhode Island was the one maybe up to a few years ago had not had any, but they've had confirmed sightings there as well now. Can anyone tell us what number Tennessee is in regards to the states? In number of sightings? You want to take a guess? 13? Pretty cool. Want to go to the next slide? So if you look at the BFRO site, which has a good national sightings database, has anyone seen that on BFRO's website, where you can go in and look by state? We're actually ranked number 14, but it's really a lot higher than that. If you look at some of the local groups that have databases of sightings, like the Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization, There's easily 100 plus more. So we're easily up in number 6 or 7 if you look at it that way. So Tennessee really is kind of a hot spot. I don't know if everyone's aware of that lives around here. So we've kind of outlined the counties here, and we're in Cumberland County. That is correct, right? This is not like outside the Cumberland County border? Okay. And you'll see that on the BFRO site, there's only one sighting that's reported, but there's 2 additional ones in the Gulf Coast database. And if you flip to the next screen here, oops, sorry, 2 ahead.
Page up.
That's okay. We'll come to it in a minute. You'll see some of the surrounding counties are also highlighted. And these numbers are all pretty low when you look at the local sites. So there is a lot of activity right around here. And we're going to go through some of the things that have happened here locally. There's 88 sightings in the BFRO database. There's easily close to 200 when you consolidate all of the different groups that are working in the Tennessee area. So does Michelle or John want to talk about some of the encounters here? Pee-wee, Jatan, anybody want to talk about some?
What state is highest in the Bigfoot?
Washington.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm.
What's the second?
You want to go back to the?
I can't see from here.
Oh, yeah, we'll go back. One more. TLC, California has 428. Washington has 563. Where's Oregon? Oregon has 234. Those are the top 3. And Ohio's tied with Oregon for 234. Anyone know Ohio was that big of a hot spot? I mean, that was kind of news to me a few years ago when I learned that. Indiana has 74. Now again, this is the BFRO sightings database. So if you look at local groups, all these numbers are probably a lot higher.
Kentucky, ours,
Yeah.
is third if you add ours.
Yeah, Kentucky's number 3 on this list if you add all of the sightings from our website on. So again, this is who feels comfortable contacting BFRO and reporting it and which ones they're able to release. So you got to remember, there's so many more beyond what these numbers are telling you.
I'm surprised that Illinois has had 222.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of these states, people are totally baffled by. I mean, even Rhode Island, they've only had 5, but again, they think there might be some migration happening, again, encroaching on habitat, etc.
And I'm surprised Alaska hasn't had more.
Yeah.
Just because there's
Not
still
enough
so
people
much.
there. It's
Not as
so-
many people, but
so
there's so
isolated.
much land.
Right.
Plus, he may not like to get cold.
About the draft horse.
So, John, you want to talk about the draft horse or Michelle?
Sure. Our first experience, so to speak, happened in May of 2011. We had just completed a big fencing project, about 15,000 feet of new fence, and came here to the barn one morning in May, right, and found one of our big draft horses was down but not dead, and both his front tendons had been snapped. We have some pictures.
Yeah, we can show this to you in the morning. It's a little hard to see him right now.
But he had a number of large scratches down his back, and he was out there right by that watering trough. And so, of course, we were kind of distraught about that and had to bring in the vet. And the vet told us he had never seen an animal that size with both front tendons that had been broken. And so we had to put Frank down. Unbeknownst to us, until recently, we found out that the breaking of the 2 front tendons is a pretty typical way to stop their prey before coming back and consuming them. So, and then last year, we have about 55 gardeners from Fairfield Glade who garden here with us. And late in the year, they were complaining because they found vegetables that had been partially eaten and not dropped, but had been tossed away from the garden itself. So it was not like you would find with a deer or raccoons or anything like that. And so again, we think that that's a possibility of what happened as they came into the gardening setting late in the year to partake in the vegetables and stuff. And then we learned subsequently, 4 years ago, there was a lady here in the Glade who now has come forward and said she experienced an encounter with Bigfoot here in this area, but was, again, too afraid to tell anybody about it until recently. So, those
Is
have been
Pee-wee's
our...
around somewhere? Have you leave?
I don't know what experience.
Oh, there you are.
I've never had any encounter or any
Okay.
experience with a Bigfoot. Or
Okay.
anything. I've been all over these mountains day and night, and I've
Never seen
never
one.
saw any sign.
Okay.
Great. All right, so the sighting I think you're talking about, John, the lady that came forward, it happened in the summer of 2005. She was hiking around here and saw one jump out of the woods and grab a snake and kill it and jump back in the woods. And it's an old trail. It was wide enough for one vehicle. And she gives a very vivid description. And, you know, brown-black hair that was 2 to 3 inches in length. So she got obviously a good look at this thing. So the neck was very short. You know, that's very common. Everybody says when they see it, they report it as having no neck. That's very consistent with confirmed sightings. It happened in the Catoosa Wildlife Management Area. There's 80,000 acres of protected land around here. Plenty of good habitat for this animal. Lots of wildlife to feed on, lots of water sources. And the odd thing is this lady was scared to come forward, I believe until 2011 is when she actually reported it, November of 2011, for fear of ridicule. And she has never gone back in the woods. She was so scared by this. And I think she actually waited for her husband to pass away before she came forward with this, and had seen Finding Bigfoot and some other shows, and it made her feel more comfortable about coming forward. And she actually reported it to the BFRO after seeing the show. Now here's some more pretty awesome sightings in Cumberland County that were on the Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization site. So there was a father and a son. And this, I mean, can you imagine being asleep in your truck on a hunting trip and having something pulling you out of the back of your truck? That would scare the bejesus out of me. He said he sat straight up, saw a big dark figure, thought it was somebody else in the camping party. The thing walks around the truck, up to the front of the truck, bends the mirror as it goes by, and then it walks back, goes to the tent, so he thinks, okay, it's one of his kids, walks past the tent, and that's when he shot at it, because he realized it wasn't someone in his party. They think they hit it, because they found blood traces on the trash bags near the tent. They found some footprints. But pretty terrifying encounter. They also found a big pile of dung. So they said it was more than 24 inches in diameter. Pretty big pile of dung. You know, I don't know whether the animal can poop that much, to be honest. And then in March 1998, this sounds like a pretty terrifying experience too. And I don't want to make it sound like Bigfoots are awful and evil and mean. They aren't. I don't want anybody to get scared. They aren't known to attack people. They aren't known to hurt people. I think there's only been 2 encounters reported in history where they've hurt someone. It's because they were shot at first. So I don't want anyone to be scared that this is all new too. But they are very curious. And there was a girl that was in a car that had gone dead or become disabled on the road in Cumberland County. And the boyfriend walked away to find help. And one came up and was shaking the car. Said that she was sitting on the front seat passenger side and began to hit the side of the car, looking at her and shaking it, scared her to death. You know, it eventually went away after she started yelling at it, and nothing more was seen or heard that night. So 2 pretty scary encounters, but again, no one was hurt in all of it. I won't even go into all of these, but Overton County, which is a neighboring county, has a ton of sightings. Now this is where Standing Stone State Park is. The bed and breakfast is in Overton. I don't know how many of you heard, Ben and I had a Bigfoot wedding in Overton County because of the number of sightings. And Janice Carter that Philip was talking about earlier, she has a lot of reported encounters with ones that she's named, family groupies of them in Standing Stone State Park. It's a beautiful park. We've had good activity there. She'll see all of these encounters that aren't on BFRO's website, but they're on the Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization's website. Yeah, Ryan.
Well, I start with the names.
Let's see, there was, let me think here. Do you remember the names? What were the names of the Does anybody remember the names?
Let me go back.
No. I'm talking about in Standing Stone, the ones that she had named.
Fox was one.
Yeah, he's a
Grumpy.
bunch of
There was
names.
Grumpy.
Yeah, there was a Grumpy.
There was a
and-
Grumpy.
Fox.
Grumpy had a wife.
Yeah,
I can't remember
I
the
don't
wife's
remember the
name.
wife's name.
She went into detail. Whenever we were going to get married, Charlie contacted her to ask what kind of sightings, and she gave us pages and pages of details about, this one was named Grumpy because he was grumpy and he would bluff charge you, and don't call the wife ugly because she gets. I mean, how much of
I
this?
have that sheet that y'all did. I've got it someplace.
Yeah. So it was pretty amazing and a lot of detail. And there was one I think that was called Silver, if I remember right.
Sylvia or is it female name?
Yeah, I can't remember all the names, but she had them all named, and she said, to talk to them and leave them treats, which a lot of researchers do. They leave Bigfoot treats. And these are some other neighboring counties, just to give you an idea of all the sightings all around us here. So we're definitely in the center of a hot spot.
Putnam County is Cookeville, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know that.
Yep, and it goes on and on.
This is our research
Do you want me to
area.
control what you talk?
Yeah. There you go. Okay, we'll just give you 2 examples of our research sites. And like Philip told you, a lot of it we don't publish on our website because of confidentiality reasons, also because we want to further our investigations there. We don't want the outsiders coming in, spooking them or contaminating the area, so we keep some of this stuff private. You could kind of see by the next map here in Bullitt County, I think it is, to Anderson County.
Let me sit down.
This is a corridor, and you can see all these sightings right through here. There's actually Anderson County's there. There's a lot more there that's cut off that Philip has in his database and we have down there. This is the area where the sheriff took me 3 months to gain his confidence to tell me he had generations of his family seeing these things behind his home. He's seen it. I finally went out there with him one night. I'm a stranger. He meets me at midnight at his house, him and his partner with firearms. We go back in the woods till 5 in the morning. While we're out there, he shines his light on his arm. He goes, "Look, I got goosebumps. I do not want to be out here." This is the sheriff. Actually, they actually drew their guns twice. We heard something move, and I'm like moving back, thinking I'm going to get shot or something. But they were nervous. I mean, visibly shaken up to be out there. And why would they take their time? I'm a stranger. Till 5 in the morning. I mean, that just tells you. And the reports, I can tell you later, all the stories, they're amazing. I've researched that area, and I've got great encounter in that area right there, the big clump. Okay, you can do the next one. Oh, 911 calls. Once the sheriff started talking to me, he calls me one night at midnight. Of course, I didn't answer the phone. He leaves a message on my answering machine. He goes, "Guess what? Some lady just called dispatch, and she said 2 men in gorilla suits just ran in front of her car." People don't believe in Bigfoot, especially in Kentucky. So what are they going to say? 2 men in gorilla suits. And people, this was not at Halloween. This was in the middle of summer. Now, I don't know if that's a felony or what that is to prank 911. I don't think it was a prank. So and these are numerous. If you click, these are all 911 calls in this area of people seeing a Bigfoot-like creature. The sheriff department actually asked me to take this off my website because they're getting calls saying, "Should we be concerned?" So I gladly obliged and took it off the website. Before you go to the next one, I got to tell them to make sure to the next one. Ohio County. This is another typical spot. I have my own Google map that we share privately. I've got detailed reports of each of these, not on our website because we researched this area. A gentleman who's 70 years old took 6 photographs on his trail camera. We were privileged enough to get in there and look at these photos. A little background on him. The reason he put the camera up is he's been putting corn out because he wants to get this big buck before he dies. So he's been putting his camera up. He got the chip out of the camera. It sat on his table for months before he looked at it. He had to go to his daughter's house and put it in her Wii. And the daughter had to go through the Wii, look at the pictures, and all these deer pictures are bright, and then there's these black pictures. And she said, it was his granddaughter, sorry, his granddaughter, said, zoom in. So she zooms in on him. There's a Bigfoot standing by a tree, yellow eye shine, which, you know, you can't really fake yellow eye shine. It's like glowing. And then it's down by the corn, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. We're going to have to shut the camera off for that. Because this picture, you know, is kind of confidential. So I don't want to release it anywhere. He's down by the corn. Then it's up by the camera, and you see red. It takes red hair, a couple fingers, takes up the whole frame of the camera. Then back in the spring, it came back again by the tree, and then it walks away. But he does not want anybody on his property. He doesn't want the media harassing him. He doesn't want investigators, you know, on his property or hunters. So he will not release these photos. It is on the internet now. He did get permission to release it on one website, but I don't really have permission to release this publicly. So I'm going to ask him to shut the camera off here. I'm going to show you. Okay. So if we could kill that for a second.